So in a few weeks' time, I'm heading off to Boston in the US to speak at Inbound. It's a big marketing and business event and probably the biggest one that I've spoken at yet. But in true Janet Murray style, I still have a little bit of work to do on my talk, and the slides are due in 5 days. So what I'm doing today is I'm going off to a cafe to work on my talk. I quite like to kind of get out and about and get away from my usual environment when I'm working on a talk. And I thought you might find it quite interesting to see the process that I go through when I'm putting together a talk. So come along with me and I'll show you what I do.
So I've headed over to Rochester in Kent to find a cafe to work in. So Rochester is famous for the author Charles Dickens. He spent a lot of time here. So everywhere you look, all the shops and restaurants are all named after Dickens related things or characters from his books. So I'm heading to a cafe called the Deaf Cat. Apparently Dickens had a deaf white cat that he was really fond of, and when it died he had its paw turned into a letter opener, which is kind of weird, isn't it?
So before I head back, I just wanted to share with you what I've been up to in the cafe today. And just a warning, if you like your planning to be neat, if you like straight lines, you don't like crossings out, you may not like my planning, but I promise you it does work. It's really, really helped me to build talks and to build them really, really quickly. So the first thing I do when someone asks me to do a talk is I look at how long it is. So say it's 45 minutes, then I'll think to myself, okay, I'm going to break that down into 5 or 6 minute segments, and each of those segments is going to have a key story that it's built around or a key takeaway message. And what I generally do for a talk of about that length, I would probably plan about 6 or 7 5 or 6 minute segments, and that gives me a little bit of time if it starts late, gives me a little bit of time at the end for questions, because the key thing on a big stage, if you're speaking at a big event, is you don't want to overrun. You will not be popular if you overrun. So once I've got an idea of what my segments are going to be, I sit down and essentially storyboard the talk, and I create something like this. So this is the different segments, my 7 segments I've got here. I've got one on what's the point of press coverage, I've got one here on creating remarkable content, got one here on Twitter, got one here, go teach something. And actually these are generally segments that I've already delivered before in other talks. As much as I can, I try and reuse my content. I update them, I have new examples in them. I don't want to be telling the same stories all the time. But that's the beauty about planning your talks in terms of segments, because you can swap segments in and out. So once I've done a bit of playing around with that and I'm happy with the order, then I turn it into something which is a little bit more organized. So I'll map out my segments with the title of the segment, what examples I'm going to use, and I'll just check whether those segments link logically to one another. But you can see that's a lot more organised, that version. And then what I do, my next job, is then to learn each segment off by heart. So I then break down each 5 or 6 minute segment, and again I'll storyboard that, and I'll write down what are going to be the key points that I'm going to make, the key facts I need to remember, and I'll start to rehearse that particular story. You can see here as well that I actually put the key takeaway point that I want people to get from the talk, or from that segment of the talk. And in this case it's like, you know, press coverage is a really good thing to get press coverage, but you don't actually have to hire a PR company in order to do that. You can actually just get noticed because you're creating remarkable content. That's the message that I want people to take away. So I start to learn that segment, I start to learn the key facts, the key dates, the key elements of the story, and I start to rehearse it. And once I'm happy with one segment, and I time myself while I'm actually doing it, then once I'm happy with a segment, then I'll learn the next segment, and then I'll practice the link between the two, and I do that until I've got the whole talk running really, really smoothly. So it does take a lot of time in terms of rehearsal, but that's what allows me to give a really polished talk. So when it comes to thinking about how long I actually practice, I mean, it literally is hours and hours and hours, but I know that this one is going to take me less time for Inbound because I've already used some of these segments before, so it's just going to be a case of revising them, updating them with new examples. So I think by the time I get to the stage in September, I probably will have run through the talk I would say maybe 10 or 15 times in full. I know not all speakers do that, but I feel that's what I need to do to give a polished performance. And I also feel that it's what I need to do to get myself to the stage. If I get there and for whatever reason the slides aren't working, I can give this talk without any notes, without any slides, and I can still give a good polished performance.